All right, good afternoon, everybody, or good evening, depending on where you are. Hope you had a great weekend. It's a beautiful day out here in sunny Arizona. Really nice. I think we didn't even hit 80 today. It was nice, windy, just enough wind. Sun was out. We didn't have too much the chemtrail stuff. I didn't see too much of that going on. I'm apologize to you in advance. I was rushing, didn't iron my shirt, so I'm sorry. I'm gonna take care of that afterwards, so I'm sorry about that. Well, we got a good one for you today. We're going to talk about looking at nature, getting inspiration from nature on how to actually build a community. You know, we've been talking about the things that are in this so-called black community and how we need to separate ourselves from that. But we also need to talk about how to get the actual definition of what community is and what better place to look than in nature itself. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to give people about another minute or so to join in, and then we're going to get started, okay? It's a nice day out, so I'm trying to get through this stuff real quick for y'all because I'm trying to catch a little bit more of it before the sun disappears. So I'm gonna be pressing today to try to get through this. Just a quick reminder, and I'm gonna tell you about this these classes that we're doing. Nicole's getting ready to drop a class soon, so you stay tuned for that one. I'll let her talk about that one, but remember, we're gonna have an AI music class that we're gonna be doing very soon. So after this one, this art one we're having. So, all right, about another 30 seconds, and then we'll start. All right, we'll just go ahead and start. Thank you so much again for tuning in. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend, like I said earlier, and I had a pretty restful one. It was nice, and so I hope you guys had a chance to get out and do something, and not just even if you just sat in the house all day. You know what? It's better, just as long as you getting rest, you know what I mean, and taking it easy if you're able to, because I know there's a numbers of y'all who you work during the weekend. I know what that's like too. So anyway, like I said, for those that are just joining in, I'm apologizing in advance. My shirt, it ain't ironed. I just was rushing and I just ran out of time. So I just was like, whatever. I'll just, it's a black shirt, so maybe it won't stand out too much. But anyway, here we are. So anyway, so glad to have you guys here. So today, like I said, again, we're going to get into talking about looking at nature on how to actually build a community. Now, notice I said, I didn't say how to build the black community. I said how to build community. And we're going to go through, it's really interesting today. Last year, I got a much earlier start in, sitting out in the sun and all of that. But I don't know what happened this year. But today I said, because yesterday I did some yard work and all of that. And I said, today I'm going to lay out in the sun. This is a beautiful day. And I did. And man, I was just getting all kind of ideas and stuff. It was great. And so, so I'm going to share some of that stuff with you. But anyway, first, just want to remind you of our class that we're having that's coming up. This class will be next Sunday, May the 4th, at noon, 12 o'clock noon, Eastern Standard Time. And this class, if you go to sambatree.com, and then you're going to go to Samba University. When you go there, you're going to see the class right there. All right. Samba University AI Artwork 101, from words to masterpieces. And I'm very excited about this one because of two things. One, it's going to be extremely interactive. It's going to be a little more interactive than our ChatGPT one, for starters, because we're going to do this one on Zoom. So it's going to give people the opportunity to, we're going to give people the opportunity to share their work. And then we're going to be grading folks on their work. And, I'm just trying to find some things. I'm just throwing up on the screen here. Where's everybody? Oh, y'all looking at my stuff now. The devil. What the devil is going on here? There you go. That's what I'm looking for. That. And so let me just put this up. You're going to be able to do stuff like this here that I'm putting up on the screen now. Yes, and you are going to be able to do it. But I don't have an art background. Well, it's okay. It's okay. I don't have former training either, but I have a creative mind, and many of you do too. And I know some people, the purists out there are like, I just can't stand it because it's, what it's doing is actually taking away from the other. Yeah. Well, I know how the AI world, how it works and all of that, but it still relies on your creativity. And that's what we're going to be working on, and trying to, and helping you to bring that out. And so it's going to be a fun time. So we're going to be doing like works like this and many other things too. I got some, we'll be doing some cartoons. I'll show you how to do that. But it's really a setup. This is not one where you're going to come out and you're going to be able to do magazine covers for Vogue and all of that stuff. Okay, so I'm not doing all of that. Okay, you're not going to come out with all that. But what you are going to come out with are just the basics on how to, to put out some good work. Because you got many folks out there, especially I'm going to call y'all religious folks out. I'm calling y'all religious folks out. Y'all get a piece of this, of AI stuff, AI artwork, and the stuff y'all be putting out there. When you depict heaven, it's got to be everybody. It look like an Earth, Wind and Fire album. You notice that? You ever notice, like in Hebrews or whatever, when they're using AI, everything look like look like an Earth, Wind and Fire album. You got all the angels got afros. All the angels. Jesus got an afro. Everybody got afro. And it's just, so things, they begin to look very similar. You understand? So and I could tell right off, they're just doing the very basics. But what we're going to be teaching you is to go beyond that and to really reach in and to start pulling from your creativity and how to build, some good and some great images, maybe just for you, if you just want to play around, or if you are trying to maybe do a book, or maybe you have a business and you're looking to have some great images for your business. We're going to be showing you all of that. The second thing is I will be releasing a book because I start thinking about it, all these different prompts and stuff. I'm composing a book right now. It will be for sale, but we will be offering a discount on those who attend the class. All right. I'm calling it the Big Black Book of AI Prompts. That's what I'm calling it. And it's going to have prompts from all over. I'm taking days to kind of compose all this stuff. And so when it's all done, it will be up for sale starting next Sunday. Okay. So just be on the lookout for that. We're going to be putting that out there as well. So today you can still register up until the day of the class. However, today is the last day for you to take advantage of the price that we have right now, which is $28.99. After today, the price goes up to $34.99. So you want to make sure, if you're trying to get on it, you want to make sure you want to save some money. I'm giving you plenty of opportunity to save some money. Okay. Today is the day. If you want to save some money, this is the last day to do it. Okay. And just as a reminder, we do have other classes here. This is the ChatGPT for grown folks class that we have. And you, when you get that, you get access to the video and you get a free book on that one. That's 78-page book. You'll be able to download on that one, and you get access to that. And coming up in the future, we'll have the AI Music 101 class. Again, these classes are designed just as entry points to get you started, how to do it, because a lot of people, they just kind of, the tool has been made available. Anybody can access it, but you just don't know. You're just kind of going like, okay, give me picture of a bird that's smiling or something like that. I'm gonna show you how to think like a photographer, how to think as a painter or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And so it's going to be challenging, but it's going to be fun. Okay. So check that out. Again, go to sambatree.com, home of health and wellness products for you and your family. So check that out as well. We got a bunch of products, on there. We have the one we just dropped this week, and you definitely want to check that out. We did a whole thing on that as it pertains to, controlling your sugar. All right. So we talked about that. That's Janima Silvestri. Hope I'm saying that right. And that is it right there. Let me get that back up on the screen. I'm not going to go through the whole page there, but there you go right there. Okay. So if you are trying, it's the nickname of it is the Sugar Destroyer. Okay. So yeah, if you're looking to get, to tone down the amount of sugar that you're taking in, you definitely want to check that out. Check that out, okay? In this Western diet, unfortunately, they put sugar in everything, and we need to get a grip on that for real, because the impact it has on just about everything in our bodies is so important to get a grip on things like that, sugar and salt, right? So yeah, so we try to address both of those things over there on sambatree.com, okay? So I just wanted to mention that. And now as we're moving in, I got all my notes here. Okay. This week has been something else. Well, the last few weeks, it's been something else. And I've been noticing that when I talk about certain topics, I remember when I was, doing the elections, everybody was on edge. When we were talking about the elections and all that. Oh man, we're getting subscribers. People were tuned in. They were locked in and all of that. And, because it's just a topic that interests people. Right. But I've noticed, and I've always known this. I've known this for years, many years, even back when I was doing blogging. That was when I first started that. Wow. That was early 2000s. Yeah, early 2000s, right after 9/11. Yeah, I was saying right after 9/11, that's when I started blogging. And after I started blogging, I noticed that when you talk about certain topics, because my interest has always been centered around black folks. And I could talk about anything else, but when I start talking about the things that that are quite embarrassing, well, that's when the numbers start going down. And guess what? I am happy to report, I really am. I'm happy to report that this week we have reached we're getting very close, ever since I've been talking about this stuff. Close to 100 people have unsubscribed from our channel. That's right, close to 100 people. The moment I start talking about what's really going on as far as the inner hatred that what we call the black community has for each other, people have been coming in. In fact, they are so excited about leaving. As soon as I started this video, they already down arrowed it. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, it comes with the territory. Let me tell you, let me say it again. Men, let me say this to you. This comes with the territory. When you are telling the truth, not only when you're telling the truth, but you're trying to fix something, just know that it ain't going to be popular. It's not. In fact, a lot of people aren't going to like it. They're not going to like it. And the first thing they will say to you is, you're beating us up. Why are you always beating up on us? When that opposite is true. If I'm in a vehicle and I'm trying to move forward, it ain't going to do me any good sitting in the car praying that the engine just turns over. No, somebody has to go under the hood and get a lot of oil on their hands and might get burned if your hand or your arm touches the hose, right? The radiator or whatever. If you touch the wrong thing, you might get burnt. You might get scarred a little bit. But somebody has to go under the hood, because otherwise the vehicle will not move. It's not going anywhere. It's not. But we have a lot of people sitting in vehicles believing that somehow we're just supposed to ignore that. We're supposed to just sit here and blame everything else. Blame the auto manufacturer. Blame the gas station that you went to and say, oh, they put the wrong gas in the car, or whatever. Blame everybody else. But instead of looking in the mirror and saying, or looking under the hood and saying, it's time for us to get real. It's time for us to look at what's really going on. And not just looking at it and not just talking about it, but we also have to put together some solutions. So that's something. Let me see here. Sharon Jackson said, Dwayne and Nicole, my daughter died. Oh, my daughter died March the 21st. This is Sharon and Rathina Jackson. I am hurting so bad. We always keep praying for you and your family. I am so sad to hear that, Sharon. So sad to hear that. We don't know what the circumstances are on that, but please email us. If you could email us, and if you feel free to share or whatever, and if there's anything we can do, please, 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 please let us know. Please let us know, okay? You're not taking up too much of our time or anything like that. We want to make sure that we doing everything we can to help you, during this time. That's, I'm so sad to hear that, to lose a child, especially, that's not, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine that. So we're very sad, unfortunate. We're very sad to hear that. And, but please reach out to us if there's anything at all. If you just want to just talk or whatever, via email or whatever, please do that, and, because we want to make sure that we're being a help any way we can, during this, unfortunate situation. Take your time in the healing. Take your time. Many of us have lost loved ones, close loved ones, and it does take a lot of time. It does. And you got to allow yourself for that. But also remember all the good things as well. I know people say that all the time, but it does help a great deal, but allow yourself the time to heal. Allow that. And it's okay. Some days you just probably just want to tune out. You know what I mean? If you feel the waterworks wanting to work, let them work. That's what they're there for. All that's part of your healing process. Okay, so please take all the time you need to heal, and we'll and please be in touch so that we can if there's anything we need to do, just let us know. Okay, so thank you for letting me know. I'll let Nicole know about that as well. Anyway, let's move on what I was saying here. So when we're talking about the importance of healing, speaking of healing, like I was just saying, we were just talking about it's care@sambatree.com. You can just email that one because that's shorter than, the other one, Journeyman and Woman. You could just email us at care@sambatree.com. And Nicole or one of our other people, they'll catch it and forward it to us. Okay. Yeah, you can send it to us. Just like I was sharing with her the importance of healing. It's that's just not for her. That's for everyone. That's everyone. And this week, I told you I haven't stopped. I'm continuing to do it. And that is, I have been subjecting myself to literally hours upon hours upon hours of videos that have been uploaded by other black folks, but the police and other sources, I guess, that have uploaded these things of that's showing the problem that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And it's what all I can tell you is a couple of things. And this is something that I posted in our community page. I guess it was yesterday. Yeah, this one here. This one here. And I said the amount of venom and vitriol towards each other within what we call black culture, it is getting worse. It's getting worse. I know many of y'all don't want to talk about it, but it's getting very real. Lives are being lost every day over the past simplest of disagreements. I could stop right there and we could do an entire video on that. Just over the simplest of things. Over the simplest of things. Now, let me just say this. And there's many of you who are watching this, you will see things in the news, and in your mind, you will quickly say to yourself, that ain't me. That's some ghetto black folks. A lot of times people will be dismissive and just say that. They'll just dismiss it and say, that's just them over there. That ain't me. That ain't not. Now, that may be that. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. But what I'm asking you to do in these videos is to ask yourself, are you still identifying with this thing called black culture? Because that is a part of it. You understand what I'm saying? It is. And I'm going to get into some things here in this broadcast. So we can't just dismiss that as, oh, those are just gang members. Oh, those are just some ghetto folks. Those are the hood rats or whatever the name is. But you'll find these people oftentimes are in your own family, maybe in your own neighborhood. And trust and know, if a white cop was to do something to them that went over the boundaries of the law, guess who would be opening their mouths to defend them? Many of you would. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you're not that far from these folks. But it's very easy to disconnect ourselves and say, to flip the switch when it's convenient. Oh, those are hood rats. But then when all of a sudden a white cop or someone, a white person comes and says, that's our queens, that's our kings, and we're going to protect our men and the community's going to come together. Come on now. I'm telling you. I'm telling the truth. And I'm telling you, a lot of people are going to be embarrassed with this. If you have invested this heavily in that Carmelo Anthony stuff, I'm telling you right now, if this thing is going to full trial, there's going to be stuff coming out. I'm telling you, because it happens all the time. I don't need a crystal ball for this stuff. And now the folks that have been the loudest defending this dude are going to have to now be behind the 8 ball perpetually trying to defend if something else comes out. There was a video that came out recently. It was like, from students, they were saying, yeah, I know him. He's known for fighting in the school. This came out. It's online. So how you going to defend that? But what's going to be the excuse now for that? Well, I'm sure that people will think of stuff. But we have to stop defending this stuff. Anyway, so in this post I talked about that this type of rage. And this is just a couple of stories. Let me just give you 2 examples here. Now, there's a story that I just heard about recently. I think this took place recently. I said it was a story where 2 black women, they got into an argument over a man. And so they're arguing, and then all of a sudden, what happens? One pulls out a knife and slices her, slices the other woman. Well, the other woman, she said, okay, if you're going to go there, she goes into her house, and guess what? She gets a gun. And on video, they show this woman chasing this other black woman, two black women now, chasing each other down the street. One has a gun in their hand. And according to local reports, they said that people on the side were they saying, hey, stop, don't do that. Don't do that, sis. It ain't worth it. No, they said they were cheering. That's what the report said. They said they were cheering them on. They chased anyway. So the girl chased her down the street, shot her. Now the girl is gone. This just happened. Then there was another story that happened. This is in South Carolina. In South Carolina, at some apartment complex, group of black kids or whatever, I don't know, they're young adults, whatever. Once again, you can't just settle your disagreements by just talking it out. They pull out guns, start shooting, and guess what? You got two 10-year-old boys. Two 10-year-old boys sitting in their apartments. They ain't got nothing to do with any of this. Nothing. They're sitting in their apartments. Here comes the stray bullets. Took one out. One is gone. He is no longer with us. The other one, they said, it looks like he ain't going to make it. Two black boys. And I'm going to keep on saying this stuff because I know if this was the Klan that was going into these communities and doing this, this will be an international outcry. But what we're going to talk about today is the desensitization, if that's a word, that has happened between many people's ears when they hear this stuff. That's where we're getting to. There was another story, and I got a few other stories here that I'm going to share with y'all. This is, I'm glad I wrote all my notes down. Let me share something with this because I'm talking about this deep-seated hatred that's within this culture. Now, I was reminded of something, I don't know, just the other day, it just came to mind. I told you, I grew up born and raised partially in North Philadelphia. Now, I'm a child of the 70s. Right. I'm a child of the 70s. And so it's amazing that I remember the details of this. When I tell you I remember the details of this, I had to be about, I would say 4 or 5 years old. But I remember the details of this. My mom every day used to walk me to school, Logan School in North Philadelphia. She used to walk me to school every day. And I remember there were days she would walk me to school. Now, mind you, my mother, like my father, they grew up in Jim Crow South. So they know about the whole water fountain thing and all that stuff. So they lived that. They would tell you stories just like I'm sure many of y'all, if you grew up in that era, stories where, you can't look the white man in the eye and, you make sure you walk on this side of the sidewalk and all of that stuff. And you can't eat over there. They know that because that's what you understand, but you still had to keep your head, your neck straight, and you could not give them an inch to call you out on anything. Okay. So fast forward, here's my mother in her 20s walking me to school. And I could see it as clear as I see my computer here, my camera, and my lights here. I could still see it here. There was at least 3 black girls, young black girls, these are teenagers, that would walk behind my mom and I, and they would call her all kinds of names. They would talk about her weight. My mom, she wasn't, in that time, she wasn't like heavy, it wasn't like that, but they would talk about her weight. I can still hear it now. They were talking about, you got that big old jello butt and all of that stuff, be calling her all kinds of names. Now, I'm going to hold myself together. I really hold myself together on this. But I can remember looking up as a child, looking up at my mom and seeing how she had to keep her face straight. And she would tell me, Dwayne, don't say nothing. And they would be saying all kinds of stuff. And then every now and then my mom would turn around, don't y'all have something better to do or something like that? And they would still be talking. My mom wasn't doing anything to anybody. She was raising me and being a housewife and a good, mother and all that stuff. She went out here in the streets. She was never, my mom was not a street for the street. She was never, the total opposite of that. But they would call her all kinds of names. As I'm walking to school, North 15th Street. And then I remember at one point as a child, it got me so angry to look up at my mom and she's gripping my hand. It got me so angry. I turned around. I said, leave her alone. Just like that. And I can remember them laughing, and my mom, she would, pull my hand back, said, Dwayne, come on. Now, this is a black woman that had to have the same attitude in Jim Crow South not too long before that. And we started an entire movement against that. But now, when we do it, it's just part of the culture. You better grow a pair. You better grow a pair. Well, what did you do to start that in the first place? Maybe you did something. And I'm going to tell you, that stayed with me. I'm 54 years old and I still remember that. I still remember that to this very day. And it's still, just as I was enraged as a 4 or 5 year old, it was around 4 or 5 years old. It makes me enraged now to think about it. But it's gotten even worse because people do not want to talk about it. What possesses you to go after a mother who's walking their child to school? They're not doing anything. They're just living life. Now, thankfully, I would get to school safe and she would I would get back home safe. But now we're dealing in a world where people, they can't even, if you look at them funny, black folks, if you look at somebody funny, they are ready to pull out a knife, a gun, something. And if it ain't that, they're going to make sure that they mop the floor with your reputation, try to say all kinds of things. This happens every day, every day. But the culture says, don't make a big deal of it. Don't make a big deal of it. It's just what it is. It is. You just got to grin and bear it. I ain't going to grin and bear it. Because that's not healthy. That's not a healthy way to live. It's not. And like I just said earlier, I have almost close to 100 people that don't like this. And then they unsubscribe. They're gone. Bye. Goodbye. But I'm not going to pretend here. Let's take a look. I got a couple of stories here. I'm going to share with y'all real quick here. Then we're going to get into this thing, like I said, what I want to talk about with nature. Because nature teaches us, because I'm sitting out there today, I said, nature teaches us everything. And so this was something that came to me, and I want to share this with you. It's really good. I thought it was really good. And but here are some stories that just happened this week. Let's take a look at this story here. Just this week. And ask yourself, did you hear about this story? Fulton County elementary teacher shot and killed by girlfriend.
Fulton County teacher.
Shoot. Okay, let me switch it. I got my audio. There we go.
Has been murdered, leaving her students and family heartbroken. 25-year-old Kaylin Jackson was shot at DeKalb County over the weekend.
Tonight, we're learning more about the suspect police have arrested. The victim's family is speaking only with News Edge reporter Rob DiRienzo.
25-year-old Kaylin Jackson was a teacher at Hamilton Homes Elementary School in East Point. Her murder has left her mother in shock right now.
I can't go to sleep. I can't go to sleep because if I go to sleep, it's going to be too real. You know, it's going to be too real.
Police in DeKalb County have arrested 24-year-old Janae Colbert. They say she shot and killed Jackson in their home on Derwin Brown Drive Saturday night.
You took something that held us together.
Jackson's family says she and Colbert were in a relationship. Colbert's been charged with malice murder.
We took her in our home. We made her family.
They were fine, just minutes before it happened.
Michelle Jackson, Kaylin's mom, says right before she was killed on Saturday, she just planned a big celebration of life for her grandmother.
I really appreciate everybody coming out, man. In my phone, I was typing a message to her. The first part of it to tell her words cannot express how proud I was of what you did. I didn't get a chance to fix it before I got that phone call from my son.
That call was when she learned about what happened to Kaylin. Jackson says her daughter's profession, working in special education and as a cheerleading coach, was her life's passion.
My baby wanted to help kids, especially kids that needed extra guidance.
Her smile was it was infectious.
As Jackson's mother prepares to lay her daughter to rest, she's still trying to process all of this.
I know I need to sleep, I know I need to rest, but I can't do it right now.
Reporting for Fox 5 News, I'm Rob DeRienzo.
And I could do video after video after video of these lesbian couples that are just going off on each other. There are so many stories out there like that. But you telling me they had to end like this? And again, I am asking you, how many black folks you hear talking about this story? Let's go to this one.
Philadelphia tonight, a shooting taking the life of a mother of 4 and traumatizing a young child in the backseat of that car. Good evening. I'm Aziza Schuler. The heartbroken family is determined to get justice for the 29-year-old woman who was shot and killed late Friday night. The family has identified the victim as Imani Naeem, who they say was murdered in front of her 8-year-old cousin. CBS Philadelphia's Ray Strickland is speaking with the family tonight.
The amount of times they shot her, she did not deserve it. There was hate. There was hate. She was a good person.
This is the car Philadelphia police say is where someone killed Imani Naeem. The 29-year-old shot multiple times while her 8-year-old cousin was in the back seat.
He's scared. She's scared. Car drive past, he holding on to my leg, he jumping, like, he's scared.
The boy's mother and Naeem's aunt, Sade Bacon, says her son is now traumatized. The same goes for Bacon, who says the shooting happened just minutes after she got out the car.
I ran down like this, the outside steps, and then he busted open the door and ran to me and just was hugging me. And she was just laying,
You got it. You got the gist of what happened. And this is in over in West Philly. This story here, this took place in this is all this week. Man killed several people, injured in shooting at Elizabeth City State University. Last I checked, that's a black school. One person is dead and at least 5 other people were injured early Sunday morning in a shooting on campus on Elizabeth City State University. They said, according to North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, a shooting happened around 12:30 a.m. on the campus of Elizabeth City State University. School officials says the incident happened at Yard Fest in the Quad area. 4 people, including 3 students, were shot and 2 more students were injured in the subsequent commotion. Elizabeth City. So this happens in the HBCU. Again, let me ask you, if this was a white person going on in HBCU, would you have heard about it? And not only would you have heard about it, would you be one of the main ones passing that news around? So don't tell me that, well, you know, the news don't cover it, so that's why we don't know. The news covers this stuff all the time. One last story here. Now, this took place last year. I think in the Post, I may have mentioned it happened this week, but no, this actually took place last year. This story here, basically, I don't have to read it, but I'll just tell you about it. This is a barbershop in Atlanta. Two barbers are basically fighting over a customer. They get so mad, one pulls out a gun and shoots the other. So I'm asking you, what is going to make someone so angry? You're getting angry over a customer, and the first thing that comes to your mind is death. The first thing that comes to your mind is, I'm going to kill you. I saw another one, someone today, this week, that's another one, I don't have it listed here. This week, it was a post on Instagram. Someone posted something on Instagram, and they started a whole street war over this thing. There's another story that I don't have it here. Last night in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, tourist town. People go to the beach to hang out, to chill, by the beach side and all of that. Make sure, Johnny, you bring the bring your toys now, it's your little floaty, and bring your little shovel so we can make some sand castles. And I'm gonna bring the grill because I want my hot dogs and all of that. And make sure you bring your gun too. Make sure you bring your gun too, just in case of what? It's water and there's sand. Why I need a gun for a beach? Why you need to bring a gun for that? For every little thing, we're bringing guns. Now, isn't it interesting? Isn't this interesting? When you go work for Mr. Charlie, not 5 days out of the week, are you bringing a gun to Mr. Charlie's place? If you have to work in Amazon, for example, for those that work, let's say if you're doing Amazon work, are you bringing a gun up in Mr. Charlie's place in Amazon? You got a gun, you come strapped when you on the workplace? No, because there is a policy in place not to do that. That's what we're going to talk about. And what I'm going to ask you in this video is, what are the policies that we in what we call black culture? And if this is happening every day, you already know the answer to that. There aren't any. All right. And so all of these different news stories, like I said, I can go for days on these stories. For days. I'm not exaggerating. Every day. Today, you check the news tonight, do a certain news search for shootings. I guarantee you there's at least 5 to 10 plus black folks that are gone over some dumb stuff. But what happens within black culture is that you have been programmed, you have been desensitized to see that as, yeah, they're black folks, but they're something else. They're the crazy ones. They're the crazy ones. So what black culture tells you is you are given license to push it away gently, conditionally. But as I said earlier, but if you find out that there was a white person involved, then all of a sudden you embrace it and then you protect it. It doesn't matter what they were engaged in. You still protect it. But if it's two black folks, it cancels itself out and we push it away. That's what I'm talking about. So when it comes to death, we have become desensitized to that within our own people. Someone said Amazon, they're bringing guns and knives in there too. I didn't know that. Well, just as long as I get my stuff, that's all I care about. But that's wild. That's crazy too. If they're doing that, and now you got to ask yourself, why are they doing that? Well, maybe they need guns because they need a quicker way to open up the boxes. That's probably what they need. You throw the box up and then you shoot it up, and maybe that put some air holes in it. Maybe they need that, or the knives, box cutters, because you're always looking for a box cutter. So if you can't find a box cutter, then you're always going to use that knife. Maybe that's what it is. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt, right? But why are you bringing guns and knives in Amazon? Why are you doing that? Unless you hate these people. You understand what I'm saying? So there's this, what I'm talking, it's deep. What I'm getting at is this hatred. It is deep. It's deep. And I know for some, then in the religious world, you want to contextualize it within, your Bible or whatever it is that you follow. But what I'm telling you is even without your Bible, this still exists. Even without it, it still exists. And the reason why I want to leave religion out of it is because religion acts as like a blanket covering the real issues. Because this, what we're talking about, it has nothing to do with you ain't praying hard enough. It has nothing to do with you not following law, statutes, and commandments. It has nothing to do with any of that. This thing it really starts in the home. That's really where it begins. And a lot of these people who will all the time will lean on, oh, you're cursed. Black people ain't cursed. And isn't it interesting? Some of the same people that hate me talking about this, they're the main ones that will tell you black people are cursed. I'm telling you the opposite. I'm saying, no, we're not. I'm not cursed. You might be. I'm not cursed. But there is a such thing as adopting a cursed mindset. And a lot of people adopt that. They adopt a cursed mindset. I will never, when I was in religion, I used to say the same thing. When I woke up, I realized I would never allow that to come out of my mouth again. I would never say that black people were cursed, because what that does to you psychologically is that it takes away any and all incentive or motivation to do better, because you'll always think that you'll fail no matter what you do. So why bother? Why try? If you want to follow your religion, you go ahead and do that. I'm not gonna, that's your choice. That's your life. But what I'm telling you right now is this, what we're talking about here, it's not a religious problem. Religion, if anything, exasperates the issue. But this is something that starts home. It starts with the individual. And that is what we're talking about today. And we're going to talk about how to fix it. Now, I was thinking today when I was out, now we're getting into what we're talking about. When I was out today, I was thinking, these thoughts just came to my mind. I was thinking about nature, and I've talked about this before, but I think it bears repeating. The symbiotic relationship that plants and animals have, and a lot of times people don't really take the time to process or even think about this. When you look at plants, for example, if you've ever taken the time and walked through the woods, you will see certain plants that are ferns, for example. You will see them and they're all gathered in a certain place, right? Or, they're like in small patches. Or if you're looking for certain berries, poison or non, you will see some that are like gathered together in small groups. And then others, they're just kind of scattered all over the place, right? But you'll never see an entire forest made up of only berry trees or only pine trees or only name the species, right? You'll never see that. When it comes to certain trees, if you've ever been in the forest, well, everyone I'm sure in here has been in the forest, you see those fungi. You see fungi growing in certain places. And you may think, oh, that's just some insignificant stuff. No, without that fungi, a lot of those trees would not be able to communicate with each other. They will not be able to, move about different nutrients and stuff like that. Fungi is very, very important within that whole space. When you're talking about being in the forest, it's very important. And but if you take one thing out of the forest, regardless of the plant, regardless of the tree, it will have an adverse effect on everything else in the forest. No matter what it is, it does, because everything in the forest, all the plants and the animals, they all have a symbiotic relationship with each other. They do. Even the poop from certain animals, plants will take the nutrients out of that and grow. That's how in sync everything is. So when you hear somebody telling you or pushing a message telling you that we have to get rid of all white people are going to have to be destroyed, what they are saying to you is that they really do not understand nature. They don't. That is a very foolish thing to say. Because like it or not, all these different groups that are out here, as human beings, we have a symbiotic relationship with all of them. We do. You may not like them. I'm not telling you to love folks. I'm simply saying that if you get rid of one, it's going to have an impact on everyone. Period. It is. And that is something, in fact, to a certain extent, we live in that now. You may live in a community, let's say in a neighborhood that's made up, let's say, of mostly black folks. Okay, for example, when you go to your grocery stores, Kroger, Publix, whatever it is, Safeway, that community didn't build those grocery stores. It was other people that built those things. So to a certain extent, you still have to rely on other communities. And I'll give you some examples on that in a moment. Now, I'm going to give you an example of, it's called Teosinte. Teosinte. How many of you have heard of Teosinte? I have a short video that's going to tell you about Teosinte. Uh-oh. Hold on. Let me pull it up right here. It jumped on me. This is called Teosinte. Let's take a look at it. I don't know if anybody's talking on it, but let's take a quick look at this. It's a 7-second video. Just take a look at that. No, there's nobody talking on it. Just look at it. Okay, I ain't getting ready to cut off. All right, let me freeze it here. Let me go back here. Okay, you know what that is? It's like I said, it's called Teosinte. Teosinte that's what the natural corn looks like. If you ever want to know what corn looked like before we called it corn, that's what it looks like. And it grew mainly down in Central South America area. And Dr. Sebi actually has a short video on this, and it's funny. He was talking about this, and what he was saying was, he asked the tour guide about this. He said, what were the main foods that the Mayans, what did they eat? And he was talking about how someone in his tour group, they said, oh, please, it was corn. They all ate corn. But the tour guide, he said, no, it wasn't corn. He said it was something else. It was Teosinte. And Teosinte, take a look at it. You see how it's very short? And it's just got a few little kernels on it. That's what it was. I'm getting somewhere with this. Here's another video of this.
Hi guys, thank you for stopping by for another video today. I hope you're having a fantabulous day today. You may or you may not have heard Dr. Sebi mention it. The Teosinte. The Teosinte. Here is a clip of Dr. Sebi mentioning the Teosinte.
A very important role. Right. I could go to Mexico and get Teosinte.
I thought I would mention it in case there are some of you who have not heard of the Teosinte. And what the Teosintes are, they are wild relatives of corn. Mm-hmm. So the Teosinte is the ancestor of the corn that is produced today. Unfortunately, the corn that is largely available for consumption today has been genetically modified. There are many varieties of genetically modified corn, and these are not beneficial to our health.
Okay, so I'll just stop there. So you got the gist of it and what she showed here. So you can see here on the screen here, this is what corn really looks like. So we went from that to this. Now, why did they increase the kernels on it? Because, again, it's about demand. It's like, how can I make more money off of this? Because I'm not getting enough kernels off of the natural one. I got to make more of them. So they started crossbreeding them. These are things you want to, make sure you put a check mark by what I'm saying here. They started crossbreeding these things, and they started creating hybrids of the original. Okay, I'm going somewhere. So that's what this is what they started doing. And so when you start looking at hybrid plants versus original plants, and you do a whole breakdown of that, what you will notice, what you will see is that when you do a side-by-side comparison between hybrid plants versus original plants, let's back up for a second. When you see corn growing like in cornfields, like we have all seen cornfields, right? And they're all growing in a single file in a line or whatever. That's not how teosinte grows like that. Teosinte basically, when you're walking in the bush, if you're walking in the, in the tropical, wherever it is, it grows like in patches. And there may be a bunch of stalks that all group together. And they all group together in one, that's it, right? But that's it. And then later on, and then around it, it'll be other plants. And all these plants, they all play on each other. They all, it's a symbiotic relationship. And so the way people used to eat this, the corn, they would just eat it because it actually had a nominal level of sugar in it. So you would just pluck the teosinte and chew on it. It wasn't so much like what we see today with this corn. This is abnormal. This is unnatural, what we see right now. The ears of corn right here, that is all unnatural. But it's become natural now because that's all we know. But this right here, this is the original. The teosinte. That's the original. That's what it's supposed to look like. Now, why am I pointing this out? Because when you look at hybrid versus non-hybrid plants, non-hybrid plants, because they're grown in a symbiotic situation. In other words, they're getting and pulling help from different plants, different species and stuff like that. Because they are growing in that environment, they are built for longevity. They can last forever. They can take on forever. And then you're going to get the fullest benefit of what that plant is producing. Now, when we get into hybrid plants, what they've done with this genetic stuff and crossbreeding and all that stuff, now they got to bring in chemicals and all that stuff. They're maximizing what they want in that teosinte, which they want more kernels, right? They want it larger. They may want it a certain color. You got yellow corn and you got white corn, but you also got, I think, red corn, and they can play around with those variables. Now, you may get more out of it. It may yield more, but the longevity, when you compare it to non-hybrid plants, it doesn't last as long. Neither is it as resistant to pests naturally. You notice how they have to spray all this stuff on corn because of the pests and all of that? If you've ever walked through a cornfield and if you ever taken the ears of corn off and you don't see any bugs, that's scary. Someone gave me a rule of thumb. They said, if you want to see if something is good for you, always gravitate towards a fruit that you see the flies gravitating towards the most. In other words, if the bugs ain't getting to it, that means you probably should leave it alone too. I'm not saying you got to get a rotted piece of fruit and eat it. My point is, if you're out there in the wild or whatever, and and ain't no bugs nearby or whatever, probably means there's a good chance someone may have sprayed it. It's a very good chance someone may have sprayed it. And it's a good chance you probably ain't in the wild either if you don't see any bugs. You know, I've gone berry picking in the wild and all that, and it's bugs all over the place. But, you know, you can find the ones, some you got to leave on the tree, others you just eat and they're there. You know what I'm saying? And you can enjoy it. But, but yeah, that's kind of a general rule of thumb that they have. But they have to do all this spraying when it comes to corn. Corn does not naturally grow that way. I'm getting somewhere with this. Going back to teosinte, it grows into these small patches. The hybrid plants, you got to do all of this stuff to assist it in order for it to grow and to yield. You got to do all of this stuff to get it to do what you want it to do, to control it, to control the outcome versus just letting it be. And there's all kind of examples that we can give with that. You can also look at animals too. You know, getting back, I was being funny earlier. I was saying, you know, some of these Hebrews, they get their hand on AI artwork. They do a whole painting, image of a kingdom of lions. You know, it'd be a whole bunch of, it'd be like, as far as you can see, it'd be all lions. Even the lions got afros. Even the lions, on top of all that mane they got, they'll make it where that lions got afros and crowns. Don't forget the crowns now. It'd be a whole kingdom of them. But in reality, in nature, you would never see that. If you were to get 1,000 or even 100 lions and put them all in one room, man, they'll be tearing each other apart because nature does not allow that. You cannot, that's not sustainable. You can't have too many lions together. It's just enough. It's just, they got their little group and that's it. The lion and the lionesses, you know, they got their little group and that's it. I told you I'm getting somewhere with this. And you can name the animal. Same thing with plants, the same thing. When you go into forests, you will see trees of the same species kind of huddled up together, but you'll also see them all spread out too. Because even with them being huddled together, they still need all these other trees and plants and animals and stuff that walk by and all that. They still need all of that, because if they don't have connection with all these other different cultures, all these different plants and animals, they will die. If you look at the Mayan, if you do any study of like the Mayan Empire, or if you look at some of these other ancient empires, see, in a lot of our minds, we think it was just all bunch of Mayans. For example, we're talking about the Mayan Empire. We just think it was just them and that's it. But the reality is no, the opposite is true. They had relationships with other cultures within those regions. And in those other cultures, they actually traded ideas. They traded techniques on how to farm and ideas on spirituality and ideas on other things. They traded things and it helped them both to grow. Again, these ancient kingdoms, they had a symbiotic relationship with other cultures. That's where I'm getting at. So as for you, you have to think the same way as an individual. I'm not talking to you as so much as a black person. I'm talking to you as an individual. And what I am saying to you is, like I said in other videos, you have to begin to start connecting with people by frequency, not so much by skin color. You understand what I'm saying? That should not be your determining factor. You need to start connecting with people who you know you vibe with the most. In many cases, yes, it will be friends that look like you or family members, but not all the time. And whatever group that you put together yourself, it's not going to be a large group. It cannot be a large group. It cannot, because you will literally eat yourselves up alive. You can't do it. You have to put yourself in position where you have a smaller group of people that you identify with the most. I'm talking about on a deep personal level. So you got that. You got to do that first. And secondly, the component needs to be how you are connecting to other groups that are out here. And understand that there's got to be a symbiotic relationship with these other groups. Anytime you hear anybody out here telling you or preaching some kind of message telling you that this other group has to die, you need to stay as far away from them as possible, because my goal isn't to die in this life. My goal is to live and to grow and to grow and to grow and to grow. And guess what? I'm going to attach myself to whomever or whatever to make sure I'm doing that. Period. You understand what I'm saying? But yet at the same time, I am maintaining my own personal identity. I'm not losing myself in who I am. I just realized that in order for me to be at my maximum potential, I'm going to need these other things that are out here too. I'm going to need to be in contact with these other folks too. The forest is changing right now. I don't care when I talk about the forest, I'm talking about the people forest. If you're here in the United States, the people forest is changing right now. We're getting a lot of Spanish folks coming up in here. You know, that's been happening. So you could do one of two things. You could be, well, they need to leave because they ain't coming to, they taking over our communities. You can do that, or you can learn Spanish. You can start learning some Spanish. Getting to know these folks. That's not abandoning your culture. You're just learning how to, you just going with it. You know what I'm saying? Hey, man, there's some things I can learn from them. There's some things I can pull from them. There's connections I could get. Let me give you a practical example. I've been talking for a long time about this grapefruit and how it's literally been changing my diet, like literally. And especially seeded grapefruit. Now, this is something I'm doing on my own. This had nothing to do with Samba Tree. This is my thing. This is what I've been doing in the house. So guess who I've been going to? I've been hooking up with these Spanish, Mexican folks. I've been hooking up with them. This one person said, I'll give you 2 bags for whatever, for like $20 or whatever. I said, sure, I'll do it. And, they usually get a fair amount. But dag on it, this last time, she came out of the house. She had a whole big, I said, you can leave that right there. I'll pull it up. Because she was like, oh, you need to back your car up. I said, oh, okay. All right, okay, let me back my car up. I'm about to get blessed today. And she backed up, and I backed up the car. It was double the amount that I was thinking. But what is that doing for my health? It is vastly improving my health. Vastly. But if I have this mindset where I ain't going to deal with them, shoot, they need to go back. No, I'm not doing. No, let me connect with these folks. Let me understand them, and I'll give them some stuff in exchange too. Let me help you out with some stuff. You understand what I'm saying? So this is the mindset that you have to have as an individual in this. But this all like, it ain't nobody else in the world. Even religion, getting back to that point I'm just making here. You got people out here who are teaching that somehow this God that they worship, he's creating a kingdom where it's all going to be nothing but black folks. Well, that's kind of out of the nature of the God that they're talking about, because according to what they talk about is that this God created all of nature, and nature cannot survive if it's a bunch of lions. Nature cannot survive if it's a bunch of oak trees. Nature can't survive if there's only one species that's there. You need all of these species working together. So even with that, I know half of y'all that's going to fly over your head what I just said. Nature, you need all of these things working together. All of these things work together. All these cultures, they do work together. Now, there's a lot of mess that's in these cultures right now that need to be cleaned up. But anybody, so you got people out here now who've been out here teaching that somehow God gonna wipe them all out and it's only gonna be us left. And I'm sitting up here like, well, why did he create all these different species of animals and plants and all of that? And I'm just gonna wipe all of my. The only thing's gonna be left for the oak trees. Well, the oak trees ain't gonna be able to survive. So the last point I'm bringing up is this. Each species has its own set of, and I'm putting in air quotes, I'm going to call them core values. Just for the sake of argument, we're going to call them core values. Each species has, what do I mean by that when we're talking about core values? For example, there are plants that know, okay, if I'm getting this amount of light, I need to find some way to shade myself because I'm getting too much light. If this certain insect comes my way, this is how I'm supposed to defend myself. Or when you're talking about multiple plants, they have a shared, again, air quotes, core values on how they can work together to defend themselves against whatever it is. The same thing applies to fish. It applies to other animals, right? They have their own core values. Well, it's the same thing with people, right? Different cultures, they have their own core values. Let me give you some examples. Like, when we look at Asian cultures, and I'm including people from India in this as well. Now, we will be a full lie to sit up here and to suggest that all of these different, Asians, they all 100% agree with one another on everything, and they just love each other and all that. No, they fight and bicker and go after each other just like anybody else, right? They do that. And when it comes to the area of business, they definitely go hard on each other. Definitely they are fierce competitors with each other. But at the same time, there are some barriers. There are some boundaries that they have within their culture where they'll say, okay, we can compete, but let's not go too far with it. Let's make sure that we keep it sane, right? We're going to make sure that, we're all benefiting at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? As long as we're all benefiting, that's all that matters. Agree? Yep, agree. Make sure we stay within these boundaries. When we're living in our own communities, yeah, we may have our issues and all that, but we're going to make sure that we're not violating each other on these certain things. But we will allow ourselves to disagree and all of that, right? And that's just Asian culture, for example. Other cultures you can point out, they have similar things too. And I'm specifically talking like in the area of business. Now, let me ask you something. When it comes to Black culture, specifically in the area of business, I'll start in the area of business. I'll start in that. What are the core values? In other words, what is the value system where there are clear boundaries where we'll say, you know what? We're not going to violate each other on this, that, or whatever. We are going to we have a core, solid internal thing inside of us that makes sure that we are not going to violate one another because we have to grow together. We have the same common threats that are out there, so we have to work together. We also have to build with one another, which means that we're going to have to share resources, even though it may be a little bit uncomfortable to do that at times, but we need to share resources. Plants do this all the time. They share resources all the time. When you look at the network of trees, for example, if there's one tree in that network that's weak, the other plants will push water and whatever nutrients to that tree that's weak. Plants do this all the time, and you'll see some of this to a certain extent in different cultures. Let me ask you something. Within what we call Black culture, do we have a non-government assisted program or set of core values that will do that? Or do we have to turn always to the government to help infill that? Only people who grow, who allow themselves to turn back to be, to get the mindset of, how could I say this? I'm trying to get back to be the Tio setting. That's what I'm trying to be. Because the more I cut away all of this stuff, it forces me to start looking to operating like I'm supposed to operate. It forces me to not look at people just based on color, but connect with people based on, like I said, frequency, to connect with people that way. And as I do that, I grow. You know what I'm saying? Exponentially, it just grows. I can see and measure my own personal growth. But if I'm thinking like a hybrid plant, then my success is only tied to what the government can do to assist. In other words, I want to build a business, but I need a loan. Mr. Government, can you give me a loan? Well, because of years and years of racism, I need reparations money. Without reparations money, we'll never make it. We'll always be failures. You understand what I'm saying? And so when you think that way, you're always going to be dependent on outside forces, but in a way where it's not good. You understand what I'm saying? Outside forces that want to take advantage of you in a bad way. That's what I'm talking about. And so you don't want to think that way. On one hand, you want to make sure your infrastructure here is built and it's solid, right? You have your own set of core values, set of standards, right? You always start from there. And then from there, then you begin to reach out and connect with other people that fall in line of those set of core values. You understand what I'm saying? Because if you don't do that, then it's a bunch of mess. Like if you're measuring people just on race alone or color of skin alone, you're inviting a whole world of trouble in your life. You are. So in order to get to this point, what's going to have to happen? There's going to be a lot of pruning that's going to take place. It's going to need to take place. There's a lot of cutting back. There's friends, there's family members, there's associations that you have. You're going to have to really take a long, hard look at those things, at those connections. And you're going to really have to start measuring, are these people actually helping me, or are they the anchor that's kind of like in a bad way? They're prohibiting me from moving forward. There's some people, it's very hard to make those decisions, change of diet, the change of things that you're taking in. You're going to have to make some serious changes, even to how you eat. Because how you eat has a direct impact on how you think. For some people, it's going to be a change of environment. You may have to physically move, but you're going to have to do something. And that's where we are right now. You're going to have to do something if you're really trying to succeed. And what I'm telling you is this thing we call Black culture is not a culture that's conducive for any kind of growth. I can give you examples all day where all you see is death and destruction. I did not say Black people are that. I said Black culture is that. Our history is full of many examples. I encourage people all the time to look at our history at the blueprint, because it is a good blueprint to follow. Our history is. But the current culture that we call Black culture is not the blueprint that we need to follow. This deep hatred that's there. And like I said, religion, in my opinion, it exasperates it. I can't tell you how many religious folks come to our platform and literally want to send us straight to hell and curse us simply because we ain't believe in the way they believe. And go. I mean, it's fine. Then go. I don't want to have nothing to do with you. I don't want to be associated with people like that. But I wanted to come here and just share these few things with you. There's something I was just thinking about today. Just the importance of looking at nature on how to build community. This is how you can do it. And part of it is, or a big part of it is, realizing that you're going to have to connect with other people. And this whole mindset that we've sold ourselves on, thinking that we're, one day it's going to be one big black planet and we're all going to be in unison. That's all hogwash. That's not true at all. Even when the planet at one point was, well, it still is an overwhelming majority black or brown people. Even with that, the brown people on this planet can't even get along in this present state. But there are, within that, there are subgroups, there are people on an individual level that are connecting with one another. And I'm saying that's how you have to think in order to survive in this climate. I hope you got something out of this. I hope, I'm not the best of communicators, but I do hope you get something out of it. Some people will get it, others will not. Some people will get offended, others whatever. But I'm telling you right now, listen, this is the cost. This is the cost. And trust me, there are people that are paying a lot more than I'm paying. Just with people unsubscribing, that's nothing. That's absolutely nothing. What makes me who I am is not likes. I don't need your likes. That's why when's the last time you hear me up here talking about, all right, make sure you like the video. You got to like the video. I'm not saying that. I'm sorry. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm grown. I'm not going to sit up here and make sure you please like my video because it helps the thing. I know, I get that. I get that. The more people like, the more people engage and all of that. It helps raise up the profile and all of that. I get all of that. I get that. But I can't wrap my head around telling people to like me or to like my video. I just can't. I can't get that out of my mouth. I can't. So it's not about that. But men, young men, older men, you're going to need to start speaking out, and you're going to have to start being forceful. There are too many men out here. And I'm not saying all of you out here. I'm not saying it. But the scale is still unbalanced. We need more men. When you see this kind of stuff, when you see this kind of behavior, you need to speak up. Even if it's in your own house, you need to raise the standard. We don't need any more simpish men out here. Women, same thing. You need to speak up. You need to use your voice. Same exact thing. You can't carry everything, but you can speak out. And that's what needs to happen. But this right here, what I'm trying to help you is that get out of the mindset thinking that you have to rescue a culture, because this is not a culture that can be rescued. You can't rescue this. This culture is made up of so many bits and pieces of things that you had nothing to do with. You need to start developing your own culture, and that starts in your home. And then you go from that, okay? And then as you're doing that, you'll begin to start connecting with the right people, okay? So that's it. That is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, today is the last day. If you want to connect if you want to get on that AI artwork class, you can still sign up even beyond today. But if you want to take advantage of a discounted price, today is the last day for that, okay? That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in. You guys take care, and I will see you the next time we do a video. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day.